is going on, guys? Hello and welcome back to what is now our third episode of the GoingFor2.com NFL Sports Betting Show. I know football season is right around the corner, but that's not the biggest news today. The biggest news dropped a couple hours ago. LeBron James is a Los Angeles Laker. It actually happened. Him, Lonzo, Big Baller Brand, all going down in Los Angeles. Breaking news, huge news out of the NBA world, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We got NFL coming up, just preseason, only a month away now. Preseason games are going to be starting. Can't wait. So, of course, if you tuned into our last couple podcasts, Tim Strobel and I broke down the NFC, all 16 NFC teams, took our guesses at what we thought Vegas thought the over-unders were. We're going to try that again. We're going AFC. We're doing 8 teams today, AFC South and AFC North. So with me today is on and off contributor of GoingFor2.com, Matt Daniels. Matt, how are we doing tonight?
Doing fantastic, man. I'm excited to see LeBron go out west. We'll see how he does.
Yeah, he has never been on a Western Conference team, so we'll see about that. Pretty shocked that Paul George didn't join him there, though. That was kind of weird that he re-signed with OKC, but it is what it is. We'll see. Somebody else is joining LBJ in LA, though. It's not just going to be him and Lonzo and Kuzma. I think Cousins or possibly Kawhi. We'll see in the next coming days. That's the consensus, basically. Yeah. But we'll see, man. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Going to be a very interesting NBA season. But we're jumping right into the AFC South. We're going to take some more shots at what we think the Vegas over-unders are. So let's jump right in. You ready to do this, Matt?
Yeah, let's go.
Alrighty. So coming in, of course, we're going to do the lesser teams and then get to the more playoff-bound teams. So we're going to be starting in the AFC South. Coming in at 4th in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts. Last year, 4-12 year for Indy. Vegas's guess for them was 9 wins. They went way under there. I'm pretty mad at myself for not making a bet on the under because several reports from medical professionals and team doctors around the league were saying there's no way Andrew Luck plays this year. And that just happened to be the case. He didn't play a single game. I'm sure he was able to come back maybe like week 12 or 13. By then, the season was over. Didn't matter. So yeah, sort of a lost season for the Colts last year. But Andrew Luck is now back. So let's talk a little bit about the team around him. So this offseason, pretty quiet offseason for Indianapolis. They lost Dante Moncrief. They added Quentin Nelson in the draft. They traded back for that pick. He's supposed to be a slam dunk guard prospect, so Andrew Luck has never really had any real protection helping him out, so that'll be good to have a nice solid guard there. They picked up Al Woods from Tennessee as well. But yeah, not a lot new in Indianapolis here. There's not a lot here changing. The only thing is that Andrew Luck is back. But Matt, I know you and I we're in like the top echelon of football fans, and I'm looking at their defensive depth chart, and their defense has been awful for years. I took a look at their depth chart, and there's one name that I'm confident on who I know who it is. It's Malik Hooker on defense is the only name I recognized on their depth chart. I'll read off some names. These honestly sound like EA Sports, like create a player, like the default guys they give you when you start a season or something. Here are the starters, not even the backups, Matt. These are the actual starters for the Indianapolis Colts on defense this year. These are names they could have been, again, like I said, EA Sports default. I have no idea. We have Matthias Fairley, Antonio Morrison, Quincy Wilson, Kenny Moore, Anthony Walker, John Simon, again, all starters. Hassan Ridgeway, I kind of recognize that name, but all these guys I've never heard of these players before, and these are 7 starters for the Colts defense. So my question to you, Matt, is like, okay, you have Andrew Luck's back, that's great. They don't really have a running game, but like, why would they not go defense in the first round of this draft? Why would they take Quentin Nelson? Because this defense is just dog shit. It really is. What do you think about their defense? What do you think we might see from the Colts next year on that side of the ball?
I think you pretty much already covered it. I mean, there's really nothing positive about this defense. I mean, I don't think that it really was a priority when you look at their acquisitions. Going back to what you were saying, a couple of names I do want to add. Austin Howard, which was an offensive tackle they got through free agency, and then they also drafted Brandon Smith, was a guard from Auburn. So it really, what they did was they put all of their money into protecting Andrew Luck. That was the number one priority for them, and I think that they accomplished that for the first time in his career, really. So yes, their defense is going to be absolute dog shit, exactly like you said, but I really don't think that was really the priority. I think they know they're really in a rebuild, and the number one priority for them this year was to make sure that Andrew Luck was going to be standing by the end of the season.
No doubt, absolutely. We talked on our last podcast, Tim and I, about like how the Seahawks and the Lions are kind of in a weird situation where like the Seahawks clearly are basically in rebuild mode, but they have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Russell Wilson, so like the team around Luck, they're in the same boat. Like, Luck is a great quarterback. He's definitely a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the league. But, like, the team around him, they're in rebuild mode. Like, there aren't a lot of weapons on offense for him. Like, it's going to be a weird season. That's why I think they're coming in last place in this division. But, yeah, I don't know. You're right. They just did not address the defense this offseason. It's just going to be really, really bad. Really, really bad defense. Again, I have no idea. As one of the biggest football fans, just none of these names I recognize at all. At all. So it's going to be more of the same. Their defense has been terrible for years. It's going to be bad this year. One thing I wanted to mention before we take the guess here is, so the whole Josh McDaniels thing that went down this offseason, we're gonna get onto that topic when we talk about the Patriots on our next podcast. But I have some theories on what happened there. But they didn't end up hiring Josh McDaniels. All the other good coaches were taken, so they sort of scrambled. They hired Frank Reich from Philadelphia. But a name that, like, it honestly fits like a puzzle piece. Everything about the aspects of this coach that I'm really, really shocked that he's not coaching them. And that's Jim Harbaugh. He used to be a Colt. He coached Andrew Luck at Stanford. And rumors are coming out that he's sick and tired of coaching at Michigan, wants to go back to the NFL, make more money, and just he's tired of recruiting. So, like, all these things, like these puzzle pieces, they should come together, and, like, he should have been the coach of the Colts. What do you think? I think I'm pretty spot on there. I think that was, like, the perfect match, but he's not there. What do you think?
You're right. I mean, that would have been a really perfect marriage, but now with Frank Reich there, we'll see if he can make something happen. But, I mean, since they were able to scramble and actually get him, I don't think that they're going to be quick to move away from him since he was loyal whenever Josh McDaniels was not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what to think of Frank Reich. I don't really have an opinion either way. I don't know a lot about him, but Carson Wentz was really good under him, so maybe you can rub some more.
And Nick Foles.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick Foles. So the defense is going to be bad. They lost some pieces on offense. They did add a lot of offensive line help, which is definitely going to help out. However, huge gaping hole at running back still. Yeah, they're in rebuild mode. They play in a very tough division. My Vegas guess is 7.5 wins. What is your guess, Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I have them right at 7. So I had to go through this twice because I went through thinking, hey, Andrew Luck is healthy. His offensive line is fully revamped. It's really hard for me to view an Andrew Luck team to be subpar, you know, like a sub 500 team.
For sure.
And so I really had to, like, be honest with myself. Like, look, is this team, other than Andrew Luck in this offense, or are they really going to be winning that many games? And yeah, I had to bring it down a little bit. So I think 7.5 is a good guess.
The actual Vegas over-under for 2018 is 7 wins. Matt Daniels, right on the money, right out of the gate. Nice guess, Mr. Daniels. 7 wins is what they think Indianapolis is going this year. 7-9. I could see it. I mean, however, having a great quarterback, I just think Andrew Luck is really, really good. I think he at least gets you to 8 wins, maybe 9. I don't know, but yeah. Great.
And if I had to bet, I'm just staying away from it, man. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
Like you're saying, Andrew Luck is a great quarterback. He could be in games where they have no reason to even be in that game because he's played so well.
For sure.
I would just stay away from Indianapolis. They could either be a 4-win team or maybe potentially a 9-win. There's a pretty big swing there.
No doubt, no doubt. So 7 wins is what Vegas says. Very solid guess. Yeah, I would stay away for sure. But it looks like, the Colts several years ago were playing in that AFC Championship game, but it's rebuild time. So 7 wins, pretty conservative guess by Vegas there. Alrighty, so coming in at 3rd in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans last year, 9-7 year for them. Vegas's over/under guess coming into the year last year was 8.5 wins. They went slightly over there. They made the playoffs for the first time since 2008, over a decade of no playoffs. If you're a Titans fan, the prayers were finally answered. They actually won a game in the playoffs, had a nice 18-point comeback against the Chiefs. But then in the offseason, Mike Mularkey proves that life isn't fair, brings the team to the first playoffs and a playoff win in over a decade, and gets fired. Just straight up gets fired, yet Hugh Jackson has a 1-31 record. He still has a job. Life's not fair. So, a little bit about their offseason. They didn't do a whole lot, but they did bring in a couple Patriots, added Malcolm Butler on the secondary, picked up Dion Lewis, too, like both of those moves there. On paper, to start, I really like this team, Matt. I think the Titans are going to be pretty good this year. They made the playoffs last year. Yes, they play in a tough division. But on paper, I really like Mariota's still there. Derrick Henry showed some signs last year. You got him trading off with Dion Lewis. Corey Davis made some strides in the playoffs. Their defense was a struggle for them, but they added Malcolm Butler, of course. I like that move a lot. Their secondary was absolutely atrocious last year, one of the worst in the NFL. But the thing about their season last year is the reason that they made the playoffs last year was they got the Colts twice with no Andrew Luck, 2 easy wins there. They got a cheap win against the Texans without Deshaun Watson. They lost by 40 when Deshaun Watson was playing. And then they got the Week 17 easy Jaguars benching all their players. There's 4 wins. And then before the Jags got good, they beat them in Week 2. So there's 5 cheap wins. They only won 4 legit games. They got tossed in several games, got destroyed by the Steelers. Again, by the Texans with Deshaun Watson, gave up 55 points. So the big thing about the Titans last year, yes, they made the playoffs. They actually won a game in the playoffs, but a lot wasn't talked about the terrible, terrible play of Mariota last year. He had 13 touchdowns and 15 picks, more picks than TDs. Never a good sign. What do you think about Mariota this year? Was that just a fluke? What happened last year that made him so bad? Because he had an incredible season the year before, 26 touchdowns, 9 picks. What do you think about Mariota for this year? Was last year, I'd be kind of scared if I was a Titans fan because he played terribly last year.
Yeah, I really, truly believe that was just an anomaly. I think that it was just a bad year. That's why Mike Mularkey lost his job. Their offense could have been a lot better with this guy and with the weapons that they actually have on offense, which is why they brought in a new coaching staff. And they brought in Matt LaFleur, which I think is going to be the huge difference maker in this offense. He has coached under, or was the quarterback coach underneath Kyle Shanahan, and then the offensive coordinator with the Rams last year under Sean McVay. And so he is just from that really creative system that's actually going to be able to utilize Marcus Mariota and his strengths. And I think that with the additions they had on defense with Malcolm Butler and then their two home run draft picks, in my opinion, Rashad Evans and Harold Landry, I'm bullish on this team.
Yeah, me too. Me too, for sure. 9-7 last year. They did get those cheap wins. One thing I just wanted to mention before we take the guess here is the Titans, with all those cheap wins and, of course, the nonsense that happened in the Ravens-Bengals game in Week 17, the Titans should have missed the playoffs last year, and as well as the Bills. The Bills had no business being in the playoffs either. I know both of them did get 9 wins, but the two playoff teams that would have made the playoffs way more interesting is the Ravens being thrown in there instead of the Titans. And then, of course, the Chargers definitely should have been a playoff team last year. They, of course, missed it. So I'm kind of annoyed that the Titans were in it because they had no chance against the Patriots in the second round. Just no chance. That game was over by the first quarter. But on paper, I do really like this team. I love Malcolm Butler in the secondary there. Dion Lewis should do some things for them to unlock their offense. However, their receiving core is kind of meh, but they still have Delaney Walker there. And I think Mariota should be on pace for a bounce-back year. Great points about the offensive coordinator for the Rams is now there. So my guess is going to be Vegas thinks that this team goes 8-8. 8-8 is my guess. What do you think?
I think Vegas is probably looking at, so I'd say 8.5.
8.5, huh? Interesting guess. 9-7 last year to what Vegas thinks the actual 2018 over-under is 7.5 wins is what they think. So you and I were high, so that means we're probably going over here. I think this team wins nine games next year. I could easily see it as long as Mariota stays healthy. But 7.5 is what they think. Yeah, I'd definitely go over there. I think 7.5 is way too low. This is a good team. I think they're a playoff team this year. Do you think the Titans sneak in as a wild card this year again?
Oh, for sure. And I told you I'm bullish on them. I think this is a 10-win team.
10 wins? Wow.
Yes. I mean, the main reason why is that they're playing the NFC East and the AFC East. And besides Dallas, Philly, and New England, do you really think that they're going to lose to any of those other teams? New York Giants, the Jets, Washington, Miami, or Buffalo?
Definitely. Great point. I think the Dolphins, we'll talk about them sometime next week, but I think the Dolphins are going to be like the worst team in the league. I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling about them. I think they're going to be terrible.
I agree.
So yeah, Titans 7.5, a little low in my opinion. So yeah, I'm definitely taking the over on that. My guess is 8. You said 8 as well, so we're close. But 7.5 is what Vegas thinks coming into 2018. So coming in at second in the AFC South, the Houston Texans. The Texans last year. A good and bad season for Houston. Their record was not good, 4-12. Something that wasn't really talked about is a lot this offseason was that they also lost that pick to the Browns. So the Browns had the first and fourth overall pick. So they went 4-12 and lost their first round pick. So that was kind of shitty. But of course, the great Deshaun Watson is the team's quarterback for the next decade plus, hopefully, as long as he can stay healthy. He absolutely just destroyed the league. He blew it up. It was every single week. He was a must-start in fantasy, of course. Just unbelievable play from Deshaun Watson last year. Of course, went down in the bye week. Couldn't believe it when I got that notification from Bleacher Report on my phone. Deshaun Watson, torn ACL. Twitter blew up. Everybody sending prayers. LeBron, Julio Jones. Everybody was... It was so shitty. I'm not a Texans fan. I don't root for the Texans. I don't care. They're in the AFC. My team, of course, the Vikings, is in the NFC. But, man, I was super bummed when I got that news. Deshaun was just so fun watching him throughout the season, and he was just tearing up the league. And this could have been a really good season for the Texans, but of course, torn ACL in the bye week, so hopefully he can recover from that. So yeah, 4-12 year for them last year. So let's talk a little bit about their offseason. Didn't do a whole lot, I suppose. Their big offseason move, however, was Tyrann Mathieu from the Cardinals, slotting him in at free safety. I love that move. What did you think about Mathieu going to the Texans? I love that move for them. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, that helps out with their defense. It softens the blow of losing Brian Cushing. So I think that, their defense, their secondary did need some help, especially after losing A.J. Boyd the prior year. So bringing in Tyrann Mathieu should bring in a little bit more physicality to that defense on the back end. So it was a solid gain. I'll give them that.
Yeah, for sure. Their secondary, much like the Titans, was really bad last year. Of course, basically their whole team, I think they ended 4-12. I believe they started like 4-4, so they lost, or 3-4, something like that. But they lost 8 of their last 9 games. The Texans lost without Watson. That's how much he meant to that franchise. Terrible year, and you know what? They are very lucky that they got to play the Browns with Watson, because they would have lost to the Browns. I guarantee it. They would, if they had Tom Savage or T.J. Yates, whoever the fuck was back there. They would have lost to the Browns definitely. But they played them 1 week before Watson went down, so they snuck at a win there. Of course, Cleveland, infamous 0-16 year. But on paper, like, in the AFC, though, I think the Texans are the most interesting team. I think this is definitely just all around. J.J. Watt's back, Clowney's there, added Mathieu on the defense. Hopefully their secondary can play a lot better, but Watson, if he starts week 1, you got Hopkins, you got Lamar Miller, of course Will Fuller there. Like, this team, I think, has Super Bowl aspirations. I think this is a very dark horse Super Bowl contender. What do you think? Do you think you could see them playing in the AFC Championship game at least, Matt? What do you think?
So, yes. The short answer, yes, I could see that. But this team depends 110% on Deshaun Watson. If he goes down or regresses from his crazy pace last year, this team isn't really going to be going that far. But I mean, they'll still be a good team. I think Deshaun Watson will be the reason of how far they go. But I think the most exciting thing about this team isn't Deshaun Watson. It's J.J. Watt playing with Jadeveon Clowney, both healthy for the first time. And I think that's honestly what I'm most excited about, not necessarily Deshaun Watson.
I'm glad you brought that up, because J.J. Watt, the last 3 years, has just been plagued by injury, more than any other player, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And so I'm worried. I'm really worried about J.J. Watt as one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. Like, if he gets one major injury again, I think he's calling it quits. I think he really will. He, of course, is dealing with back injuries, which are just the worst if you're a football player. It's going to be tough. Like, if something bad happens this year, I think he's just going to hang him up. He's getting up there in age. A lot of people don't realize that. I think he's almost 30. And so if he has another major injury, like, I think it's over for J.J. Watt. And that would be just awful for the whole league, because you and me both, of course, we love watching J.J. Watt dominate on the defensive side of the ball. But that's a good point. I'd love to see him and Clowney dominate on that side of the ball, add some pressure to the quarterback, and actually make that defense a capable bunch, because last year they were just terrible. They gave up so many points late in the year. That defense is one of the worst in the NFL towards the end there.
I'm sorry, I wanted to jump in on that last bit for J.J. Watt. The good thing about this injury was that it was just a broken leg. And yeah, a broken leg is devastating. I don't want to downplay that. But it didn't have anything to do with his back, which is a good sign. So it was a clean break to his leg with the offseason giving him time to fully heal and come back to it, I don't think that this is something that's going to give him take away from any of his explosion, or it's going to take anything away from his game, or it's really anything that we need to be concerned about looking into 2018. If it was something that was dealing with his back, then I 100% agree it is concerning. But because it was just it was something completely different to any of his prior injuries, I think that is kind of reason for optimism for his health status going into 2018.
Yeah, I just worry about the reoccurring injuries to that back, though. Like, I just really think that it could definitely hinder and possibly force him into retirement. So we'll see what happens. Again, JJ Watt's one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching him play football, so hopefully he can stay healthy. But when talking about the Texans as a whole, we've talked, Tim and I on our last podcast, about the key to winning a Super Bowl in 2018 in recent years, in this past decade, is having a quarterback on a rookie contract who is good at a very young age. So Carson Wentz, of course, last year, I know he wasn't in the big game, but he was the heart and soul of the Eagles last year. Not only that, Russell Wilson in 2013 making $500,000. They were able to get so many free agents, bolster the defense. And then Jared Goff last year, and this year too, he's still on his rookie contract. They're going to be Super Bowl contenders. They were able to sign Aqib Talib, get Marcus Peters, Ndamukong Suh, all those guys. So Deshaun Watson makes $3 million on the salary cap hit. So it's Super Bowl aspirations time, in my opinion, for the Texans. They need to be the Matthew move was fantastic, but they need to be adding more pieces on that defense. They need to start signing more guys because people want to play with Deshaun Watson. So I think that this team is ready to compete for a Super Bowl right now because they have a ton of salary cap space. It's go time for the Texans. I think Deshaun Watson's going to come knocking in several years, asking for over $100 million easily if he can stay healthy.
Oh, for sure.
So it's go time right now when Deshaun Watson makes $3 million. That's all I'm saying. So my guess for Vegas, it might be a little low, but they're playing a very tough division. All their division games, even against the Colts and Titans, are going to be tough. I'm going 9 wins is what Vegas says. How about you? I think 9 is a pretty solid guess. You going with 9?
100%. Yeah. Again, like I was saying earlier, they're playing some, other than Dallas, Philly, and New England, I don't think any of those other teams that they're playing are really worth a damn. And then they're playing against Cleveland as well, added into there. So, yeah, for sure, I can see 9 wins.
There's no way that Deshaun Watson's going to be able to keep the record pace of touchdowns that he had last year. He had 19 touchdowns in like 6 or 7 games, something like that, something ridiculous. So, of course, he'll regress a little bit. Hopefully the knee is good to go. ACL tears, out of all injuries in sports, ACL tears scare me the most if you're a fan of any team. Anything with the knee is just terrible. So Vegas's actual guess is, you and I say 9, Vegas says 9 is Vegas's 2018 guess. You and I right on the money there. I think I'm still going over there. I think this is an 11-win team, honestly. 11 wins, maybe even 12 if Watson can stay healthy, but the defense is going to be improved. The only thing that I have concerns with is the offensive line is pretty bad, but hopefully they can keep Watson upright. But you and I right on the money at 9 wins. Very good guess from both of us.
Yeah, and again, it really just depends on Deshaun Watson there. If you're going to be betting the over, you're thinking Deshaun Watson plays all 16. And I think that the defense really is good enough where whoever is coming in at quarterback doesn't have to do a whole lot for them to win. But if they have Deshaun Watson healthy the whole year, they could very well make a Super Bowl run.
I think so too. And the window's wide open right now. Deshaun makes no money, and the salary cap is super full. They can sign whoever they want right now. But yeah, it's go time, especially next year. We'll see. Next year will be definitely a Super Bowl contending season for the Texans. I'm curious to see what they do in the offseason next year. But yeah, I think the Texans, if I had to do a bold prediction on this podcast, I say that they do make it to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots would be my bold prediction. But we'll see. You never know. I mean, Aaron Rodgers got hurt last year. They were Super Bowl contenders. They won like 7 games with Brett Hundley. So you never know. Injuries play a huge part in that. But I think if Deshaun Watson stays healthy, we're talking about a Super Bowl contender without question.
I agree. Even with the regression.
Yeah, for sure. So coming in at first, the defending AFC South champion Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming into last year, Vegas's guess for them was a measly 6 wins. They only thought Jacksonville would go 6-10. Instead, they flipped the switch and they were playing in the AFC Championship game. Excellent season for Jacksonville last year. And you know what? They should have been in the Super Bowl last year. If not for the Miles Jack fumble, they stopped play. He was on his way to the end zone. That would have put him up by 17 and the game would have been over. There was no chance of New England coming back. Of course, they downed him or whatever, and it was a fumble. They did get the ball back, but Miles Jack should have had a touchdown there, and the Jaguars should have been in the Super Bowl last year. So let's talk a little bit about the offseason for them. They're sort of in run-it-back mode. I mean, they had a great year last year. They added Moncrief from the Colts, which was probably their biggest offseason move. They lost Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, which really hurt. However, they made it to the AFC Championship game without Allen Robinson, so we'll see. Of course, the biggest addition to their team last year, which really just put them over the edge, was, of course, their defense was one of the best in the NFL, but having Leonard Fournette there just opened up that offense, and they could literally just do all they did was play keep away. Just put the defense on the field. They're going to stop them. Give it to Fournette and just not have the ball in Blake Bortles' hands like as long as possible. So very good season for them last year. So what is your outlook for Jacksonville this year? Because it was kind of like a fluky AFC, like that they made it to the AFC Championship. Deshaun Watson goes down. Andrew Luck missed last year, and then the Titans were okay and made the playoffs, but still weren't a threat. The Jaguars really ran away with the division really early because of all those injuries to the quarterbacks, but they're all back this year. So I don't think we're going to be I think their Super Bowl window is closed a little more this year, but what do you think the outlook is for Jacksonville? Do you think that they still could make it back to the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, defense wins championships, and their first 2 picks in the draft was Taven Bryan and Ronnie Harrison, a defensive lineman and a safety from Alabama. I'm sorry, the Taven Bryan is from Florida. Ronnie Harrison's from Alabama. I want to clarify that. But, I mean, they added even more talent to their already ridiculously talented defense. They brought in Andrew Norwell from Carolina. He's an offensive guard. They are 100% committing to the Dallas system. You build your offensive line, have a great defense, or not necessarily Dallas because their defense isn't that great. But I mean, they're committing to that type of style where you have a great running game and you have an excellent defense, and you can win a championship even with a not so great quarterback. I mean, you're right. I mean, Allen Robinson wasn't even there anyway, so that wasn't much of a loss. Allen Hurns only had 400 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. He didn't really provide much anyway. Dante Moncrief, I think, can really step in and be that number 1 wide receiver there. Another guy I really like is Austin Sperry-Jenkins.
Yes,
he'll be
absolutely.
An excellent red zone threat. And I'm a huge fan of DJ Chark. I think that his athleticism is crazy, and I think he's really a perfect fit. I mean, the Jaguars are really turning to the LSU of the NFL. So
no doubt.
I could see a lot of play action passes to DJ Chark, the deep down the field, and he's just winning those deep balls. I'm really bullish on Jacksonville. I really think this division is probably the best in the NFL.
I could not agree with you more, Matt. I think we talk about the conferences the AFC is not a very interesting conference. the NFC totally blows it out of the water. They got the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, Vikings, Eagles, Packers. There's so many good teams in the NFC, but out of all the divisions in football, I think we will see 3 playoff teams from this division. I think the Texans will definitely make it. I think they'll win the division. The Jaguars should sneak in as a wild card, and my other wild card would probably be the Titans. So I'm going 3 playoff teams from this division. Would you agree with me on that? I think this division will have.
I 100% agree.
I think this division is going to have 3 playoff teams for sure. Again, the thing that makes it so hard about guessing these over-unders and future standings is football is a violent sport, and so many guys get injured, and it's just, you never know what's going to happen. Deshaun Watson, they look like a Super Bowl contender last year. He goes down. They lost 8 of their last 9 games, so you never know. But the one thing about this Jaguars team is, I'm beating the dead horse here, but why is Blake Bortles still their quarterback? They could have gotten Alex Smith in the offseason. They could have gone and grabbed Tyrod Taylor. They could have even put in a flyer for Kirk Cousins. Like, any of those guys as the starting quarterback, Tyrod, Kirk, I think that's like the second best team in the AFC if you throw Kirk Cousins or Tyrod or Alex Smith on that team. I don't get... They signed Blake Bortles to almost $20 million. Like, I just don't know why you wouldn't put in a flyer or an attempt to get any of those guys. What do you think? I think that they should have gone and grabbed a quarterback.
Man, if they would have gotten Tyrod, that's a game changer for this team. Because I truly believe Tyrod is a great quarterback, and we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about Cleveland. But yeah, Tyrod would have been great here and totally attainable as well, and probably less expensive than Blake Bortles.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Tyrod, he gets so much flack from analysts and stuff. I don't know why. He led the Bills to their first playoff appearance, and
they were trying to tank.
I know. Exactly. They were legitimately selling out their players. They lost Ronald Darby. They lost everybody. It was unbelievable, and he still got them to the playoffs. So, yeah, adding out of all the 3 guys that I mentioned, I mean, Cousins obviously would be the number 1 choice, but he makes $30 million. They easily could have got Alex Smith for like $25. Like, Alex Smith would have fit in great on this team. So they just ran it back with Blake Bortles. I think their Super Bowl window is still very much open. Absolutely, I could definitely have them as a playoff team. But like, I don't know, man. If you want to talk about Super Bowl contenders, you needed to go out and get a quarterback, and I don't know why they didn't. They had so many opportunities. Tyrod was traded for a second and third round pick. I forget.
I think it was a 4th.
Was it even a 4th round pick? You couldn't have wasted a 4th round pick and gotten Tyrod on your team. Just unbelievable. But Tom Coughlin's done a great job there, so we'll see. But they should have been in the Super Bowl last year, but that's just not how it played out. So, and that was a great point. I totally forgot they added Safarian Jenkins, who he was awesome for the Jets last year. So add him as another weapon to throw to Blake Bortles. My guess overall, since they play in a tough division, they have to play the Texans twice, Titans twice. Colts going to be pretty good too. I'm saying 9 wins for Vegas. What do you think?
I have them. I'm way over, but I mean, if I'm looking at it from Vegas perspective, I would say 9.5. I'm going to go with 9.5.
9.5. The actual Vegas over-under, Matt called Kobe on this one. 9.5 wins is what Vegas says for Jacksonville next year. Great guess. You've gotten 3 right on the money so far. Glad to show your expertise here. 9.5 wins for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That seems like just like a no bet for me. Like, it's going to be between 9 and 10, maybe 11, but they play in a really tough division. I'd no bet that for sure. I don't know. You're really bully on them, so what would you say your prediction is? Like 11 wins for them?
I went through their record, or through their schedule in 2018. I could totally see them winning 13 games this year.
Whoa,
I mean,
13 games with Blake Bortles at quarterback. You heard it here first.
I'm big on him. I really going back again to the type of team that they are, it really doesn't hinge on Blake Bortles doing a whole lot. And whenever Blake Bortles has to do a whole lot, that's where he shows how bad of a quarterback he is. Whenever he's able to just rely on his defense to make plays, hand off the ball, and slow down the game, it makes it easier for him to make decisions. And so I think that Blake Bortles being limited in the number of throws he has helps this team. And so as long as their defense continues to play at a high level and their offensive line opens up holes for Leonard Fournette, this team is easily going to win this division and easily make it into the second or third round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and we give everybody, the whole internet gives Blake Bortles shit. He's a total meme quarterback. Have you seen that Twitter account, like the Blake Bortles facts or whatever, where they say he's never lost?
I love it.
Yeah, so they just make so much fun of him. He actually played really, really well in the playoffs, and I don't mean to give him shit. Like, he played really, really well the entire second half of the season, but the first, of course, he had some terrible, terrible games through weeks 1 through 8, but he played really, really well in the playoffs, and hopefully that they can get that offense more designed to just ground and pound. And just the problem for me, though, like, if we saw it last year, the perfect situation. Blake Bortles against the Patriots had a chance to go bring them down for a game-winning drive, and it failed. And I just don't think that if Blake Bortles is your quarterback and you need that legitimately Super Bowl-bound drive, I don't think he can get you there. And he showed last year that he couldn't get you there. So Blake Bortles is still the quarterback.
That's a really good point, and I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather have the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands, Alex Smith's hands, Tyrod's hands, any of those guys with the game on the line. But 9.5, you're 3 for 4 on getting these guesses right on the money. Nice work so far. So, Jaguars predicted to win the division. So we are going to jump into the AFC North next. So, talking about the AFC North now, coming in at last. Shocker here, Matt. We have a shocker at who's going to be coming in at last in the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns. The Browns. What can we say about last year? One of the worst seasons of all time, 0-16. However, if you look at the point differential numbers between the Browns, theirs was like 9.5 point differential in losses. The Lions of 2007 or 8, I forget which year it was, they had a point differential of like 13.5. So the Lions are still, stats-wise, the worst team of all time. But, yeah, the Browns, just an awful season, could not win a game. So Vegas's projection for the 2017 Browns was 5 wins. They thought that this team would be 5-11. Nowhere close. 0 wins. An infinite amount of more wins Vegas thought than the actual Browns went. So we could talk about this Browns team for like an hour, Matt. Like, there's just so much to cover. It's such an interesting team. We really could talk for hours about them, but nobody wants to hear that. But my first thoughts on this Browns team, fun Madden team. Really fun Madden team for the Browns. You got Tyrod lining up at quarterback, running around. You got Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman, David Njoku, Jarvis Landry now there. If they had gotten Barkley, that would have been like my go-to Madden team for online. Like that would have been such a fun team. They do have Carlos Hyde there, but so yeah, fun Madden team. Then if Tyrod's struggling, then you can throw in Baker Mayfield for some snaps. So it's definitely a fun Madden team. So, like we said, big offseason, probably the biggest offseason any team had this year. The first move of the offseason, Tyrod Taylor going to them. Jarvis Landry, of course, picked up Baker, then drafted Denzel Ward. Now the problem, like, teams go 0-16, okay, it happens. The Browns are one of them. Teams have bad years. But for me, when talking about the Browns, the 0-16 team of last year, that doesn't really, like, faze me that much. 0-16 happens. The biggest problem for me is the last 2 years. This is more embarrassing in my opinion. Hugh Jackson 1-31 coaching record. That is more embarrassing than going 0-16 one year. That they went 1-15 the year prior and then got the first overall pick and did worse. It's just unbelievable what's going on for that franchise. They're easily the most embarrassing franchise in American sports. So let's start talking about the draft, because I know you're a big draft guy. Now, of course, all the mock drafts around the league had Sam Darnold as the easy number one, consensus number one pick. A few out there had like Josh Allen maybe going first of them, but the most consensus ones said Darnold, easy pick, franchise quarterback, throw him in there, it'll be great. So everybody was like, okay, they're going to take Darnold first, then they have the fourth pick, great, you get a franchise quarterback. And then, like, hours before the draft, there were rumors that the Browns are all in on Baker Mayfield. And I thought it was like a joke, or Twitter just being like, just like fake news or whatever. And then it actually happened, the most Browns thing ever. The undersized partying quarterback who people have concerns about goes first overall, Baker Mayfield. Where do you have him listed in, let's say you had to pick futures right now of Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen. Who do you think has the best career when it's all said and done out of those four?
Out of those four, I think, kind of with what you were saying about, I agree with you about Josh Rosen. He definitely has that fuck you attitude. He is ready to come into this league and like you said, put up 400, 500 yards on the teams that passed him up. I think he has a huge chip on his shoulder and should have been one of the top QBs. I personally like him better than any of the other guys. I would even throw in Lamar Jackson into this group as well. I think that he's going to be an absolute playmaker, and he should have been considered in this top group as well. So in just from the four that you mentioned, I would go Rosen, Darnold, Mayfield, Allen.
No joke. I'm just super high on Josh Rosen, and I think I would completely agree with you. My four is the exact order that you gave. I don't know where I'd throw Lamar Jackson in there. I really don't know what we're going to see from him. And, like, I'm so bad at predicting mobile college quarterbacks and how they play in the NFL, so I can't say anything about Lamar Jackson. Like, he played great in college. I just don't know. I'm so bad at guessing how they'll project as NFL quarterbacks. But I think Josh Rosen, out of all four, is going to be the best quarterback in this class. But you know what? If they thought Baker was, that's fine. I don't care. Like that's their decision. A lot of people did have him very high, and a lot of like really smart analysts who I respect a lot were saying, Baker Mayfield is the most accurate quarterback in this draft. He had a way better career in college than any of these guys. Like, why aren't we talking about him as the first overall pick? But the problem is that the Browns had that pick, and if Baker went to the Browns, it would just look foolish, and that's exactly what happened. Twitter blew up. Everybody was freaking out. Baker to the Browns at 1. But that's fine. Like, if they really didn't think Darnold or Rosen was their guy, whatever. But the problem in the draft that I had was the 4th overall pick for me was an easy decision to have Myles Garrett on one side of your line and Bradley Chubb on the other side. And they didn't go with that route. They decided to take Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. Are you with me on the whole Chubb should have been a Brown thing? Because I feel like I'm like the president of that club. Like, did you think that they made the right choice with Ward at 4, or what would you have done if you were the GM?
I don't necessarily hate the pick. They definitely needed some help in the secondary. They lost Jason McCourty. They did bring in E.J. Gaines, and he was playing very solid for Buffalo. So you could argue that it kind of wasn't it didn't really fit their need. And if they really wanted Denzel Ward, they could have traded back. So
exactly,
yeah,
and they didn't.
yeah. I mean, we weren't really necessarily in that office if they were going to be picking at 4, and if they truly valued Ward over Chubb, then and they couldn't trade back, I could see that. But if I'm the GM, I'm in agreement with you. I think that having 2 great pass rushers only makes your current secondary better, and so there's not that edge rusher that's later on in the draft, but there are pretty good corners that you can get in the second and the third.
For sure. Richard Sherman, 5th round pick. But
right, exactly.
But I don't know. That was just my personal preference of what I would have done. Here's another strategy that I thought of, and I heard some other guys talking about it. Why not just throw all your eggs in one basket and draft another quarterback and take like Rosen or Josh Allen at the 4th and be like, you know what? We're not going to screw this up. We are getting a good quarterback. One of them's got to be good. Let's just take another quarterback. Like that honestly would, like, of course that if they actually did that, they'd get ripped apart, but like one of these guys has got to be good. Like, just keep throwing first-round picks at them. One of them will stick, right? But they can never get their quarterback right. Speaking of which, we're talking about the quarterback play. Tyrod, of course, there. We'll see what we get from him as the bridge quarterback for Baker. Over-under question for you. How many games do you think Baker Mayfield starts this year? Over-under. I say five games is my over-under. I think he starts 5 games for Cleveland next year.
So I think realistically, I think Baker Mayfield starts 0 games. Tyrod Taylor is a great quarterback, like we were talking about earlier. He led a team that didn't want to win to the playoffs for the first time in a very long time.
This century, they hadn't made it since '99.
Yeah, he's a very capable quarterback. He has probably the best support he's ever had in his entire career. He's got a really good offensive line. He's got amazing receiving core, and I'm somewhat tempted to agree that at least Cleveland should be considered in the top 5 as far as like the best wide receiver core. And they have 2 great running backs that could take off the load from Tyrod, so he doesn't necessarily have to put all the work on his back. There really is no real reason for Baker to start unless Tyrod is just playing horribly and losing games. I would be very surprised if Baker started this year.
But, yeah, I get the 0 over-under. I can understand that. But if the Browns are 1-12 in Week 14, there's no reason for Tyrod to start the last 2 games. You may as well see what Baker has in garbage time, sort of like what happened with Patrick Mahomes last year. Even he started a game last year because the season was already locked up. We're already in the playoffs, Week 17 sort of thing. So I think we will at least... There's no way that Cleveland makes the playoffs this year. There's just no way. And so I think their season will probably be over by Week 14, 15. Like,
okay.
I don't see why he can't start weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, That's just my opinion. So I think that their season is going to be, of course, done very soon. We'll see what happens, man. This is a very interesting team. It's the Hard Knocks team, if you're a fan of that. So I'm curious to see this squad next year. But Hugh Jackson's a terrible coach. He's already showed us that. He's got a winning percentage of like 4%, something like that. So I don't know. The one thing before we take the guess here, Joe Thomas retired, and Joe Thomas is like one of the best offensive linemen to ever play the game of football, and he's been on the worst team in the NFL for the last decade, over a decade. And then once the team is finally good, like, Joe Thomas, you want to come back for 1 year? He's like, nah, man, I'm just retiring. Like, he was like, just poor Joe Thomas, man. I feel so bad. He had a terrible team his entire career. And then the team actually has some talent. Jarvis Landry there, of course. Tyrod. Looks like a fun team. Joe Thomas, like, you want to come back for 1 year? Nope. Just decided to retire. So, my guess for them, 0 wins last year, so it can't be much higher than like 4.5. That's my guess. What about you? I think 4.5 is a solid guess. I know the talent's there, but the coaching staff isn't. This team is poorly run. There's no way they win more than 6 games. I'm going 4.5. What do you think?
I have them quite a bit higher. I have a lot higher expectations from them. I think that they can win these games, especially with Tyrod at the helm. But I mean, from a Vegas perspective, I'd go with 5 or I'll go 4.
Which is it, 4 or 5?
4.
Really, 4 wins. All right. The actual Vegas over/under. They're kind of with you, man. They're kind of with you. You think that they're going to be pretty good. Vegas thinks they're going to be pretty solid too. 5.5 wins is what Vegas says.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that is very shocking to me. People were high on the Browns last year. They were like, oh, we got Kaiser, like we got David Njoku, Corey Coleman's going to do some stuff, Josh Gordon will be back, blah blah blah, and they won 0 games. So I don't know why Vegas says 5.5. They should. It definitely. I think my guess is better than theirs. It should definitely be 5. Again, I'm going 4.5, and I'd take the under on 5.5. I just think the season will be over. Baker will be thrown in there before he's ready in the later weeks. I think this team wins like 3 or 4 games is my prediction. So I'd go under there. But yeah, we'll see, man. We will see. I just think that this team has been so bad for so long. It's the biggest embarrassment of any franchise in the game of football and American sports, basically. So we'll see what happens, though. But it can't get much worse, guys. If you're a Browns fan listening out there, you got to win at least 1 game, right? You got to win 1 game this year. So nothing can be worse than 0-16. So we'll see what happens next year. So coming in at 3rd in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals last year, 7-9 for Cincinnati last year. It was a surprising 7-9. I thought they were way worse than that. I thought they were like 5-11 or like 6-10. Check the record again. They actually somehow got to 7 wins. Vegas's prediction for them last year coming into the season was 8.5 wins, so way under there by a game and a half. The highlight of their season, of course, was in garbage time. The Tyler Boyd catch seen around the world against the Ravens, 4th and 14, ended the Ravens season. So that was a nice way to end their season against a division rival and a team that they hate with a passion. They ended their playoff hopes. So that was about the only positive thing for the season that they had. They just were so bad last year. They lost some terrible games. They got shut out by the Ravens week 1, lost 23-0. They lost to the Vikings 31-7. This was just an awful season for them. So talking about their offseason, they didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, they started running it back. They have a young team. Joe Mixon is there. John Ross, of course, is there. Their defense is pretty solid. But for me, the weirdest thing that happened this offseason, and it was sort of, they said they were bringing him back, and I think you'll agree with me on this. What the hell was up with the Marvin Lewis was like gonna retire because he knew he was getting fired. Then they both like agreed to come back. Like they both mutually are like, yeah, we'll run it back. Like we haven't won a playoff game under my tenure, but yeah, we'll give it another go. Like what the hell was up with that? He literally said against the Vikings week 15, like this will be my last game because he knew he was going to get fired, so he wanted to step down honorably. What do you think about Marvin Lewis being the coach again for this team?
First step of admitting you have a problem is admitting you have a problem. And Bengals are still...
They haven't admitted it yet. They haven't admitted it at all.
No, they want to stick with their vice. Oh, man. Yeah, Marvin Lewis just desperately needs to go. They're trying to hold on to something that is just not working. There's really no way that this team makes a run for the playoffs, in my opinion. there's really no way that this team, like, there's no real reason why Marvin Lewis should be the quarterback, or I'm sorry, should be the coach again this year. They should have definitely gone for the talent that was out there this year.
Yeah, I agree for sure. We're just gonna get the same old, same old. However, like, unlike Hugh Jackson or guys like that, like, he has been in the playoffs. Like, he knows what it takes to get a team to the playoffs. But I think, like, he's been coaching them for 15 years, no playoff wins. That's like an unbelievable statistic right there, that he has just never won a playoff game and is still the coach. Basically, they go 8-8 every year. So, like, for me, this team is like the definition of a treadmill team, meaning they're not bad enough for high draft picks to get solid key players, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs. They're just sort of treading at 7-9, 8-8 every year. So, yeah, I think that there is a possibility that the Browns are actually better than the Bengals this year. I really think so. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I mean, it's kind of in my ranking, my prediction for their records this year, I have Cleveland winning 7 games.
7 games,
Cincinnati winning 4.
God.
And I know I'm extremely bullish on Cleveland, but again, I only have Cincinnati winning 4. I think Cleveland is definitely the better team this year.
For sure. I mean, I'm with you. I think five wins would be my guess for how the Bengals fare. That's not my Vegas guess, but I think that personally they go 5-11. But the one interesting piece on this team, and we talk about X Factor guys all the time, of like, if everything breaks right with him, like a guy like Mitch Trubisky or Patrick Mahomes, if those guys break right and are actually the good players that they're projected to be, the whole franchise changes. And like, if they're not, if Mitch Trubisky is a bust, then back to the drawing board. We're going to be bad again this year. We may have to draft another quarterback, sort of thing. It's usually, when I say an X Factor guy, it's usually a quarterback. But one guy who's a non-quarterback that I think is a huge, one of the top X Factor guys in the entire NFL is John Ross for me. I think just John Ross is the fastest player in the National Football League. Yet he had negative fantasy points last year, man. He had like one end around and fumbled and lost yards. He had negative fantasy points last year. So if you can get John Ross to be that slot guy, to be the deep threat that he was projected to be, he was picked 8th overall. Like, the 40-yard dash, of course, zoomed him up draft boards, but he's the fastest player in the NFL. He needs to have the ball in his hands. They need to figure out a way to get him so that they can unlock their offense. We talk about it all the time, guys who can unlock an offense, like an Alshon Jeffrey for the Eagles sort of thing. Like, John Ross can unlock your offense. He is a huge, deep threat. I love him in the slot. You can even throw him at running back, some wildcat stuff. Who knows? Like, he needs to be more involved in that offense, and he's one of my top guys who I'm very excited to watch this year. What do you think about John Ross? Do you think he could be a star in the league? Because if he is, this team actually could turn around pretty fast, in my opinion.
Man, so that's a flaming hot take there. I'm very much in the opposite corner here. I am not a fan of John Ross at all, and I was extremely confused whenever they selected him at number 8 overall last year. Yeah, I mean, you're making some valid points. Yes, he can help unlock their team. I didn't think that they needed to take him that high, but they're kind of with him now, so they're just going to have to make it work, use him in all facets of the game, just kind of like how they used Tavon Austin in L.A. I mean, I could see a world where he becomes like their main, like their utility guy, but I mean that's really the only way that they're going to be able to get back the draft capital that they used on him.
I suppose, like, that is a very high pick for him, but like, He's the fastest guy in the league. Like, put the ball in his hands, Like, just have him blow past linebackers and safeties is all I'm saying. Like, they need to figure out a way to, you're right, get that draft capital back. But still, I think he can be a great player. Like, just as long as he can catch a football, he can outrun everybody. Just as long as he has hands to catch a football, he can be an asset in this league.
Yeah, and to your point, they should really just look at Kansas City tape and look at how they use Tyreek Hill.
Exactly. Tyreek Hill was one of those X-Factor guys several years ago. He had a game where he had a return touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. So I think that Ross can be used in kind of the same way that Kansas City uses Tyreek Hill. Very good point.
So okay, you're actually making me do a little bit of thinking here. I mean, as far as because honestly, I just completely wrote off John Ross. The fact that he barely played, and whenever he did play, it was negative fantasy points. So
yeah.
I just kind of wrote him off. However, a huge if they are able to utilize John Ross the way that Kansas City uses Hill, they could definitely take their team to new heights. And with the additions that they made to defense, specifically Preston Brown and Malik Jefferson, and then the guys they brought in on their offensive line with Cordy Glenn and Billy Price, those guys, I think that if they can basically mimic the Kansas City style of play, they can have a successful season. However, as I was talking about the AFC South, the teams that they're playing this year, of the divisions they're against, is the AFC West and the NFC South. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm thinking about teams that could potentially put three teams into the playoffs, AFC West and NFC South are definitely some teams that come to mind.
Yep, for sure.
Those are some tough divisions.
Definitely. Yeah, the more and more we talk about it, the more and more I think the Bengals are just going to be trash this year. I really do. But my Vegas guess for them, it might be a little low because they do have AJ Green still. They still have Andy Dalton. Joe Mixon did some stuff last year. Their defense is still really good too. But I think 5.5 is my guess for Vegas. In my head, it seems low. So what do you think Vegas thinks for the Bengals?
I actually agree with you. 5.5.
5.5, huh? Well, Vegas's actual prediction is 7 wins. That might be more shocking. That might be more shocking than the Browns' 5.5. Bengals are not winning 7 freaking games this year. There's no way. There's just no way.
Smashing the under button.
Yeah, absolutely. Put the entire bank account in the under. That's totally cool with me. They're not winning 7 games this year, and especially if Dalton goes down, it's over. It's just over. And Marvin Lewis. There's so much tape on Marvin Lewis of his schemes and everything. He's been in the league for 15 years. There's nothing new about Marvin Lewis's coaching. Everybody knows what he does. So smash the the under button, absolutely. I said 5.5. So man, that was my Vegas guess. That was my conservative guess was 5.5, and they said 7. So.
Me too. I think they were going to win 4 games. Vegas will probably think they'll win 5.5.
Yeah.
7. Wow, that's shocking.
No doubt, but that's what they said. Of course, most people will be smashing the under, so it'll go to minus 160 or whatever, something like that, because there's no way this team wins 7 games. I just don't see it. I can't. I think the Browns could upset them and be the 3rd in this division, so you never know. So coming in at 2nd in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens. Last year for Baltimore, 9-7 season. Vegas's prediction was right on the money. They said 9 wins, so nobody won money, nobody lost money if you made that bet. However, it was a heartbreaking season if you're a Ravens fan because of, like we said, the Bengals, unbelievable 4th and 14. Tyler Boyd, just a terrible, terrible mishap on defense. Everybody's donating money. Bills fans are giving so much money to Dalton's charity. Andy Dalton is the hero in Buffalo. Terrible, terrible way to end the season for the Ravens. I think they actually could have been a dark horse contender for the AFC Championship game, but they were on the outside looking in. So let's talk a little bit about the offseason for Baltimore. The only thing for me is this is the Lamar Jackson team. Lamar Jackson falls to the Ravens, still pick number 32 in the first round. I actually predicted that he would fall to the Ravens because all the GMs, they're trying to get him to play wide receiver or whatever and don't want him as a quarterback. But Ozzie Newsome, the GM of the Ravens, said Lamar Jackson is a quarterback and the rest of the teams in the league need to see it. So when he came out and said that, and the fact that this is Flacco's last year of his deal, I thought that they were going to go up and snag him, and they did. So Lamar Jackson, future franchise quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. You're pretty bully on a lot of things, on a lot of teams, but you're pretty bully on Lamar Jackson, right? What do you think he could do in the NFL?
This is the perfect team for him to land to. He doesn't have to do anything too crazy. Whenever you think of the Ravens, you think of smash mouth defense. Like the Ravens seems like they always have top 5, top 10 at least defense in the league. This is the team that you would look out for if you're an offensive player. So for him to land here and to really get through this transition, he's going to have time to ease into it. But this is a great for his career as far as win totals go. And as far as his talent is, he is a quarterback. He can make great throws. If you watch his tape and not just look at him with Michael Vick eyes or look at him from a mobile quarterback standpoint, he makes the adjustments. Through this year, I've seen several fantastic throws where he had a chance to run the ball, but instead he stepped into the pocket and took a great deep throw down the field. He has the arm throw. He has the talent. Keeps his eyes down the field, unlike most rookie quarterbacks. The one thing that I am concerned about with Lamar Jackson is his frame. If he's able to bulk up before he actually is out on the field, I think that's going to help contribute to his longevity into the year and throughout his career. But yeah, he's just a little bit too skinny for me, and I think that if he's able to bulk up, he's going to be like the next Michael Vick, really.
Bold, very bold prediction, but I mean, a lot of analysts are out there trying to compare him to Vic just because they're mobile quarterbacks, but he's definitely I will definitely be tuning into a ton of Ravens games, especially if they're bad on Red Zone.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets a chance to start late in the year, I cannot wait to see Lamar Jackson play. He might be the most exciting player in the league. I cannot wait to see him play football in the NFL. So,
and let me point out one thing before we move on. Lamar Jackson is the Michael Vick for the Philadelphia Eagles, where he actually developed his passing game. He wasn't the Atlanta Falcons Michael Vick, where he ran around and was able to outrun defensive players. That is the type of Michael Vick I'm talking about.
Well, so the one clip that I saw on YouTube of, when they, at the draft, when they line up all the quarterbacks by last names and they have the receiver just run a deep ball and then they toss it to him. And of course, guys like Darnold and guys like Josh Allen are just bombing it out there. And Lamar Jackson gets up there and his first throw in front of all the scouts, everything, is an absolute underthrown duck, and the dude just outran the ball so bad, and oh man, when I saw that, I was like, oh, he's not a quarterback. This is over. Nobody's drafting him now, because the one throw he needs to make, probably the most important throw he's ever made in his career, at the combine, and it was just an absolute atrocious throw. It was such a duck. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Yeah, check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen it, but. Yeah, I can't wait to see him play, and he's gonna look good in purple and black, man. That's gonna be awesome. Very, very pumped if you're a Ravens fan that you got him in the late first round. But talking about their offseason, not only the Lamar Jackson pick, but I love their offseason. I really did. They got 3 solid receivers. Michael Crabtree's now there. Willie Snead is now there. Great pickup. John Brown had a great season last year for the Cardinals. I love their receiving core now. So Lamar Jackson throwing to Crabtree, Snead, John Brown. I could get behind that if I'm a Ravens fan for sure. So the thing that I want to talk about with this team, however, is like right now their defense is. This is a very interesting fact. So just for instance, to show how rare a shutout is, my Vikings got their first shutout this last year against the Packers. It was the first time our defense has shut out a team since like 1993. 25 years our team has gone without a shutout. The Ravens had 3 shutouts this year. 3 teams failed to score a point on the Ravens defense this year. Incredible defense, top 3 defense behind the Jags and the Vikings. But the problem that really held them back this year is Joe Flacco at times was the worst starting quarterback in the league. It's just a fact. All the Broncos, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, they all outplayed Flacco at times this year. Especially in the game against Jacksonville, the London game where he got benched for Ryan Mallett. Like Joe Flacco was at times the absolute worst starting quarterback out of all 32 NFL teams. So when you're talking about playoffs for next year, Flacco's still the quarterback. You have a great defense. He has some weapons to throw to now. Like, what are the chances that we actually see Lamar Jackson take over this year? What would you say? Like, I'd say probably like 30% that he starts a game this year. What would you say?
I'm going 75.
75% that he gets a chance to start.
I'm predicting that he takes over at week 9.
Wow, you really think Flacco's just going to blow it and they're going to be like, you know what, it's over?
Yeah, I think that he is going to... I've seen the reports where he is a different person. He has got a firelight underneath him. He's playing with a lot more passion, and he's just pumped to actually make a difference. But this past year was just so god awful.
It was,
and he has a completely brand new receiving core. I don't know how you're going to develop a chemistry that quickly and then be able to make something happen. And they spend a first round draft pick on him. If he's not, I mean, and like I said before about Cincinnati, they're playing some tough divisions. If it goes off to a slow start, like how I'm really thinking it's going to, they're going to plug Lamar Jackson in there and see what he's got. Because, like you said, they think he's a quarterback, and since they invested a first-round draft pick in him, they think he's their next franchise.
For sure. And here's another thing about Flacco, like, in terms of, like where his head's at. He knows he won't be a Raven next year. He already knows that coming into this year. They drafted Lamar Jackson. It's the last year of his deal. He played terrible last year. There's a 0% chance that he's going to be starting for the Ravens next year. There's a 0% chance, almost a negative percent chance, that he's starting for Baltimore next year. Like, he knows that. Like, and he's still on the team. So, like, that's kind of awkward. That's in a very awkward situation. He's now a bridge quarterback for Jackson. That's what he is now. He was at one point a Super Bowl MVP, but now he's one of the worst quarterbacks to be a starter. So that's going to be interesting to see, because he knows, and everybody in the organization, the fans, they all know he's going to be on the way out. So I'm interested to see how that affects his game next year, because he will be starting week 1, of course, but we'll see. So,
and he's got to come out slinging to keep his job.
Yeah, for sure. And he was just, I didn't even look up his stats because I know they were trash. I don't even want to see the stats. It's going to burn my retinas. It's just going to be terrible. I didn't even need,
Surprisingly, he threw for at least 3,000 yards.
Yeah, okay. That's, yeah, we'll see. But for this team, it's a very weird situation. They should have been a playoff team last year. I think a lot of people think they're going to be a playoff team this year, but Flacco's there. They have a franchise quarterback. They're in this weird period where they're almost going to tank, but they're pretty good on defense. Like, it's going to be a weird dynamic, but overall I think This team won 9 games. You're right about the divisions, man. They play some tough divisions. But my guess for Vegas was 8.5. I thought this team should at least get to 8. They won 9 last year, so I think with the receiving core that they have now, they should get to 8.5 wins is my Vegas guess. What do you think?
This is kind of tough because I think it's because of the name of the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to bump them up quite a bit.
I think you're right.
I personally have them at 7. I think Vegas would probably look at them at 8.5, maybe 9.
So you're thinking 8.5 for Vegas?
Yeah.
8.5, you and me both. The actual Ravens 2018 over-under from Vegas is right on the money at 8.5 wins. You and me got that one right on the nose. 8.5, I completely agree. The name Ravens, John Harbaugh is still there. They play the Browns twice and the Bengals twice, so there's 4 wins right there, right? So they can't be that bad. So 8.5 is what Vegas says. I'd put them at a borderline playoff team, but I don't think the Ravens sneak into the playoffs this year.
I agree 100%. I have them as I have them at 7 and 9, but I mean, they got to make it through the first part of their season, which I guess looking at it isn't too terrible. They're playing the big known teams that is going to be given tough is Denver, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, New Orleans, and Carolina. And then they play Pittsburgh again within the first 8 weeks of the season.
That's a tough schedule right there, man. That's really tough.
Yeah. To start off, I mean, they got to be able to recover from that. And even then, in the back half of their schedule, they're playing Atlanta, Kansas City, and the Chargers. So, I mean, it's tough sledding for them this year. Yeah,
I'm going under 8.5. There's no way. Their schedule's way too tough. Just way too tough. But that's what Vegas says, 8.5. I'm not going to say we're going Bengals, smash the under button, throw your whole bank account in the under, but 8.5, if the Ravens won 8 games this year against that tough schedule, I think you'd be pretty happy as a Ravens fan. So they definitely could go 6-10, 7-9. I just don't see them going 9-7 or 10-6. So Vegas says 8.5.
100% agree.
Yeah, I just can see them being a lot worse. All right, so almost wrapped up. Our last team we're talking about coming in at first, the defending AFC North champ, Pittsburgh Steelers. Last year for the Steel Curtain, 13-3 year, very good season for them. Vegas's projection for them was 10.5 wins, went way over there. Very good season for the Steelers. So we talked about on our last podcast about how there are just so many great teams in the NFC. It's just so stacked, forwards, backwards, and sideways. And the AFC is more, you have 2 top teams, the Patriots and the Steelers. Then everybody else is sort of basically like on the same plane. But the Steelers, of course, one of the best teams in football, will probably be a 11 or 12 win team this year. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about what happened to them last year in their off season. Of course, I am gonna be honest, I slept in a little late for this game when it happened. But when they played the Jaguars in the divisional round, I went to check my phone on the score app to see what the score of that game was, and I could not have been more shocked when the Jaguars were up 28-7 on the Steelers. I was like, oh my god, I have to tune into this game. And yeah, they actually made a comeback, but Blake Bortles somehow managed to sneak out the dub there, bring them to the AFC Championship game. But there's some tension in the Steelers organization right now. A lot of tension going on all throughout Pittsburgh, Steel City. You got Le'Veon Bell in a holdout. Says he wants $14 million. The Steelers front office is too smart to give a running back $15 million, so that's not going to happen. So there's a stalemate there. He may hold out and miss some time this year. We'll see. And another weird thing, Matt, this year was So their third round pick, Mason Rudolph, I love that pick, first of all, but Mason Rudolph, he's in a new city, gets drafted black and gold. His college teammate, his favorite wide receiver, James Washington's there. He's probably super happy to be part of the Steelers. And then Hall of Fame starting quarterback Ben Roethlisberger basically says, "Yo, fuck this guy. Like, we don't need him on our team." Like, what was up with that, man? Like, what a terrible way to start off your career as a Hall of Fame quarterback. Says, like, "I'm not gonna mentor you. We're not friends." Like, that was kind of weird. What did you think of that? Because that's really awkward.
It is very awkward when involved, but I can understand from Ben Roethlisberger's point of view. Yeah, like you don't want to be choosing a backup quarterback in the third round whenever they're pretty close to winning, and their Super Bowl window is definitely closing pretty rapidly.
For sure.
I can understand from that point of view, but it's his own damn fault. He's talking about retiring the past 2 years.
Exactly.
They wouldn't have drafted a quarterback if he's just like, oh, I'm committed 100% next year. Like, it's his own damn fault.
Yeah, so hypocritical there. I couldn't agree more. He has been on the fence about retiring the last several years, and then he comes out and says he wants to play like 4 or 5. I don't know what's going through his head. But, yeah, very, very terrible way for Mason Rudolph's career to start off. Like, oh man, he was probably so excited. Mom, dad taking pictures, hugging. Then Ben Roethlisberger's like, yeah, F you, kid. I'm not here to babysit you. So there's some tension all around the Steelers organization. And I think a lot of that tension came from the fact that they lost to Jacksonville. I think they thought they were definitely in the AFC Championship game. And one of my favorite moments from last season throughout the NFL was when, after the Steelers lost and Calais Campbell sneaks onto the post-game interview and calls out Jarrell Casey and says, you said Blake Bortles was going to choke. Well, you can watch Blake Bortles play while you sit on your couch while we play next week in the AFC Championship game. One of the best moments. And then, of course, Jaguars Twitter trolling, saying that they can have more fun playing on Madden next week too. So the Steelers definitely thought they were in that game. Speaking of which, who was it? It was. Can you remind me who that was on the Steelers who said that they were gonna destroy the Patriots, and then they still didn't even get past the Jaguars? Who said that?
Oh, it was Mike Mitchell.
Yep, Mike Mitchell. Good old Mike Mitchell said, "Yeah, we're gonna destroy him," and didn't even get there.
We'll play him in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, you can play him on Madden.
Exactly. Fantastic. So they didn't do a whole lot in the offseason. Basically, just running it back. They, of course, still have Lev Bell there. Still have Juju Smith. They lost Martavius Bryant, who I didn't think they really needed to let go. I would have rather kept Martavius Bryant. I think he's a super talented wideout. If he just lays off the weed, man, he can be a really good player. So they're basically just running it back this year, trying to, like you said, I think out of all the teams who are in a legitimate Super Bowl window, I think the Steelers theirs is really closing fast. You're so right about that. If Big Ben retires or regresses really badly, then where do you go from here? You got to start all over, like the Bears have with Trubisky. Mason Rudolph's their quarterback of the future now. So, I mean, I don't really have many thoughts on the Steelers. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be a solid team this year. They'll probably be playing in the divisional round. They'll probably get a first-round bye in the playoffs. So, do you think that there's the one thing, like we mentioned earlier, is the chemistry? People are fighting. There's a lot of weird stuff going on within the organization. The Ryan Shazier thing, of course, terrible loss last year, and he won't be there, which really affected their defense in the playoffs. So what's sort of your outlook for the Steelers? Do you see them playing in the AFC Championship game like normal, or do you think they could blow up?
I don't see them playing the AFC Championship game because of Jacksonville, New England, and the Chargers. I really like those teams and how they're set up for this year. I don't think that they'll make. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll win this division for sure. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they made the AFC Championship game. I'll just say that. But they would definitely be the underdogs, in my opinion.
But the AFC is just so weak. It's just so weak.
Right. Well, it's top-heavy, in my opinion.
For sure. But
yeah, and so like whenever they get to the playoffs, like they really gotta play their best ball there. And so in recent history, they just haven't done that. And so to kind of go back and talk about the loss of Marty B. I really do think it's going to be another rookie that just steps up with James Washington. I think that he's probably better at running the deep routes than Martavis Bryant is, and he has better hands, and he won't be dropping the balls like how Marty B used to. So I think that they made a slight increase there, but I mean overall it's going to be the same Steelers offense. With Lev Bell taking the bulk of the carries and those dump off passes, and then Antonio Brown getting targets for days. I really think that this might be maybe, if it's not the last year, then they have one more year of potentially winning the Super Bowl. But after that, I don't see them being much of a contender at post 2019.
yeah, it's rebuild time if Roethlisberger decides to retire, for sure. Yeah, the one thing about this team, and the reason that they really, really, really struggled in losing that game to Jacksonville is the loss of Ryan Shazier was just so big. He was a Pro Bowler for them. He was the guy locking down those linebacking cores, stopping the run, and he just wasn't there. And not only was it a big hit on the field, but just the mentality of losing one of your best players late in the season in a virtually meaningless game against the Bengals, like that had to have hurt. And the fact that they won't have him this year is why I'm a little worried, like you, that like they may not be playing in the AFC Championship game, and Ryan Shazier may never play football again. So it's going to be interesting, but the Steelers just have so much talent. Mike Tomlin's a great coach, so they're definitely, I just can't, there's no way the Browns are winning this division. There's no way the Bengals are winning this division. And we sort of, I think we came to the conclusion that the Ravens might suck. So the Steelers, it looks like this is their division. There's just no way I can see any of those teams competing. So my guess for Vegas is 10.5 wins. I think that's a pretty solid guess. A little bit of, I don't know. They went 13-3 last year. If they had beaten New England, they would have been 14-2 and had the first seed in the playoffs. So you never know. But I'm going 10.5 wins. What say you, Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with 10. But I mean, yeah, 10.
10 and 6 season.
They're just, yeah. I mean, because I think that this is going to be the last season where they're truly just going to be like a shoe-in to win the division. You know what I mean?
For
and
sure.
then after that, Lamar Jackson should be humming pretty good with a really good defense and a year under his belt. Cincinnati, who knows? I mean, if they get rid of Marvin Lewis, who knows what happens with there? I think, like we've talked about, Cleveland is on the rise. Yeah, Pittsburgh, I think this is the last year that they get to have like a free run at the playoffs.
Absolutely, and
so
they know it too. Like that's their mentality, is they know like, oh boy, we better get this whole Super Bowl thing figured out. Like they have that in their minds. Like they've really underachieved. Like they should have been in the Super Bowl once in the last 3 years, I would say. I think they were just like a lock for the Super Bowl, and yet they've underachieved. And especially
and I think
with
that's kind of. Going back to the whole Mason Rudolph thing, I think that's kind of the reason why Roethlisberger said what he said. I mean, he knows that Super Bowl window is just closing.
Yep. Well, he's got 2 rings, so he can. Yeah, the guys like Lev Bell and Antonio Brown, the Killer Bees. Like there should have been at least one Super Bowl here, but it never seemed to fit perfectly together. And then now Ryan Shazier's gone, so we'll see. But you say 10, I say 10.5. The actual Vegas over-under for the Steelers is 10.5 wins, right on the money for me. Yeah, they just think, it's run it back time. 10 wins, who knows? But I just don't see any chance that they lose this division. So, well, thank you, Matt, for coming on the podcast. You're always welcome here. We'll definitely be talking some bets later once the season starts. Always happy to have you on. So that is all we got, guys. Next week, we're going over the AFC West and the AFC East. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Matt, for coming on. Always pleasure to have you. Take care, my man.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime, dude. Take care. Thanks for listening, guys.
You too.